Today we're taking a trip down memory lane and diving deep into your mom's animated wonderland of yesteryear.
わしが探しているのは緑の風の女神なのだ。
Let's unleash our collective rage on the animated atrocities of today compared to the golden age of cartoons. It's time to unravel the mystery of why people are ditching the so-called innovations of modern movies, cartoons, and TV shows, and scurrying back to the warm embrace of the classics. You see, even long before the age of cartoons, back in the early days of theater, when men were men and women were also sometimes men,
What's with the costume? What's up? What's with the... You mean this dress?
characters had real goals, aspirations, and human problems to deal with. I miss the days when cartoons were drawn and Hollywood had stories that didn't insult your intelligence. Back then, characters had more depth than the shallow end of Jar Jar Binks' gene pool, and plot twists were handed out like candy on Halloween. But oh no, today it's all about recycled plots, CGI overkill, and characters so one-dimensional they disappear if you turn to them sideways. So, what's the solution? Well, it's quite simple, my dear friends. People are flocking back to the classics like a moth to flame because, let's face it, old content had a heart, soul, and a smidgen of common sense. All the things that modern media seems to have misplaced in its desperate quest for relevance. Can you blame them? I mean, who wouldn't trade a CGI-laden headache for the warm nostalgia of hand-drawn animation and storylines that didn't make your brain cells beg for mercy? It's not rocket science, people. It's just common sense in a world gone mad with mediocrity. Back in the glory days, stories were like a fine banquet for the imagination, a fine wine filled with depth and richness. Characters weren't just pixels. They were tapestries woven with intricate details and compelling arcs. Fast forward to today, and it's like feasting on leftovers from a microwave. Reboots and cinematic universes that leave you with a bland aftertaste, where IP supersedes any sense of quality storytelling, leaving your head spinning like the top from Inception. Is this the real world? Wake me up when Hollywood decides to start creating original characters. I miss the old stories because they had heart. Remember when you could actually feel something for a character? Now it's like watching emotionally detached CGI puppets go through the motions. Remember, who needs depth when you can have explosions and lens flares? Am I right? Maybe I'm just getting old, but modern media has a number of problems, especially concerning volume. Why are there huge discrepancies between action scenes and the voice acting? Seems to me I need to change the volume many times as I'm watching a show, up and down. Turn it down for the action scenes, turn it up for when people are talking, and it all seems kind of ridiculous. So, if there's an Oscar for most ear-piercing sound effects, it probably goes to modern media. I mean, who needs coherent dialogue when you can have your eardrums blown out? Another major problem is that studios are afraid of taking chances. Why risk creativity when you can stick to the same tired formulas with old IP? They just use big-name stars and puke out sequels until fans start to question their life choices. It's like studios are allergic to originality. More explosions, more plot twists, more everything. Who cares if the narrative is thinner than one-ply toilet paper? As long as shit is happening, right? Another major problem with modern cinema is the total lack of pacing. Remember when movies had the audacity to let scenes breathe? Now it's a race to the finish line, with characters sprinting through plot points like they're late for a date with a CGI explosion. And a lot of it is just non-stop. And it gets a bit tiring. Modern movies tend to do a lot of tell instead of show. Because why bother showing a story when you can have characters deliver expository monologues like it's a Shakespearean play? Show, don't tell. More like tell, and tell some more. Some characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and DC should just be nicknamed exposition. The shaky cam is also a major complaint of mine. It's really just an excuse for not bringing in truly athletic people to create a high-packed action scene. Really, nothing says immersive cinema like inducing motion sickness in your audience. Stable shots are for pussies. If it doesn't feel like you're on a roller coaster, is it even a movie? Studios are so risk adverse that they just keep doing the same recycled ideas. Now, this has always been a complaint about Hollywood, but I think it's really never gotten as bad as it's been for the past decade or so. At this point, creativity is wildly overrated. So they just regurgitate the same old plots until everyone forgets what an original idea even looks like. Formulaic movies are like comfort food. Predictable, easy, and ultimately unfulfilling. Who needs surprises when you can have the same plot points recycled with slightly different actors? Or sometimes the same actors in another movie that's basically the same as a previous one. Because trying something new is scary, and who wants to venture into the unknown when you can revisit the same old tired territories? Originality is so last century. Another major issue that many people have hit on is trying to satisfy some niche audience that doesn't even typically watch or consume any of your content. Why are they trying to appeal to people who don't watch any of their stuff and represent a extremely minor political segment of the population? Apparently, authentic storytelling is taking a backseat to the desperate attempt to check every diversity box. Who cares about a compelling narrative when you can have a cast that looks like a modern TV advertisement? The effort to appeal to modern audiences has only resulted in creating a plethora of dull and boring characters. Where did the vibrant characters with personality disappear to? Now it's all about cardboard cutouts stumbling through CGI mayhem, hoping no one notices their lack of charisma. Especially Captain Marvel. I think everyone's noticed that. But inclusivity is a nuisance, isn't it? Who cares about genuine representation when you can shoehorn in characters for the sake of ticking off diversity boxes? Unfortunately, there just aren't that many films geared towards adults. Remember when films weren't afraid to embrace mature themes, a bit of profanity, and a killer soundtrack? Now it's all about making sure a movie is kid-friendly, especially since everything seems to be purchased by Disney now. Because who needs adult themes in, movies made for people over 18? A few years ago, I really disagreed with Martin Scorsese's take that Marvel movies were this bad, but he may have been ahead of the curve criticizing them as, CGI fests and theme park type films. Nowadays, we're drowning in a sea of pixels. It's hardly even cinema, it's an animated spectacle with a flimsy plot. Where did the art in filmmaking even go? The reality is, old cartoons were funny and old movies had way better plots. Modern content is just plain bad. Remember when animators were true maestros, crafting every frame with care and dedication? Now it feels like they're outsourcing animation to the neighborhood preschool. Bring back the masters of pen and ink. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, fans had the great Hanna-Barbera creating cartoons for the ages. Then in the 90s and 2000s, Nicktoons and Cartoon Network were the promised lands of animated bliss. Now it's like they've replaced our childhood treasures with mind-numbing, soul-sucking shows made by Netflix. Modern cartoons, TV shows, and movies are more interested in agendas than entertainment. Now it's like every character has a personality about as deep as some fake social media influencer. Politics and agendas? In my media? Oh, how times have changed. Old cartoons were blissfully ignorant of the real world, and we loved them for it. So were old movies and TV shows. Now it's like every character has a political agenda, and the fun gets lost in the crossfire. Old shows also had moral lessons, and characters that were worthy of praise. Now it seems that most characters are completely irredeemable. Old shows, cartoons, and movies weren't just mindless entertainment, but also sometimes vessels of wisdom. Every episode in your old cartoon often had a moral lesson tucked away amongst the entertainment. Now it's all about flashy visuals, empty plots, and politicking. In summation, it's not about dwelling in the past for the sake of nostalgia. It's about recognizing the truth of those old stories. Whether it be cartoons, movies, or TV shows, they were crafted with a level of care and authenticity that seems to have gotten lost in the modern era. People are gravitating back to the classics because, deep down, we yearn for narratives that ring true, characters that feel real, and an artistry that transcends the pixelated rush of today. It's not a rejection of progress, but a longing for substance, a plea for storytelling that resonates with something deep within us and doesn't rely on gimmicks. So here's to the classics, the unsung heroes of storytelling realms, and to hoping that the future might learn a thing or two from the brilliance of the past.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.